This message is brought to you by the 30-Minute Mentor. I'm excited to let you know that the 30-Minute Mentor is live. Our cohorts, our one-on-one consults, and also our master classes. Right now, I am running a special on the subscriptions, which will afford you at least 12 classes throughout the year from myself and also guest mentors. Right now, we're offering it for half off. It's $7.99 a month. All you need to do is sign up. Go to the30minutementor.com for more information. If you just want to sign up for one-off classes, you can do so for $9.99. Also go to the30minutementor.com. The first class is on the 19th, and it's covering unnetworking for those of you who hate the other word. This has proven to be one of the most popular topics that I've written on, spoken on, or even had mentoring circles on. So sign up as soon as you can. Space is limited, only 100 people per session. The prices for the master classes are now 50% off, but that will not last. But once you've signed on and signed up, you'll be able to listen live or listen to the replays whenever you can. Again, that's the30minutementor.com. See you online.
Hello,
Hey,
hello.
Ted. How
Hello.
are you doing?
Oh, you look how beautiful you look.
Oh, you're so sweet. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good to see you. Thank you for doing this.
I'm going to go grab a cocktail.
Oh, please do.
So, excuse me for one moment,
Yes.
and I'll be right back.
Okay. All right.
I'm ready.
What you got?
I've got a little scotch on the rocks.
Okay. All right then.
I don't know if you can see it in my R&R glass.
Oh, yes. Hashtag return on relationship.
That was a gift. That was a gift from a friend. So, and now I buy them and give them to other people.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. Everyone, I have Ted Rubin with me. He's a friend of mine, and he is one of the foremost voices in the industry of marketing. He is the Chief Marketing Officer at Photify, and he is the host at the Brand Innovator Summit that you've heard me talk about, and many of you have actually attended. Ted, thank you for joining me today. How are you?
I'm great, Michelle, but I want to correct something. I'm a fan. I'm not just a friend.
Oh.
I am a fan of you and what you do. I'm thrilled to be here. And I mean, all day today, all I was thinking about was I get to talk to Michelle tonight.
Oh, Ted, you're a sweetheart. Thank you so much. And he's so smart, everybody. And hopefully today you'll get a taste of that, the Ted that I have come to know through Brand Innovators. And I think I've spoken with you guys, especially across 2017, at least 7, 8 times, maybe more than that. I don't even know. I lost count.
It's so much that I hear you in my head all the time. So cheers to being here. I hope everyone will pick up a cocktail.
Cheers!
And join us.
Oh, that would be awesome. Okay, everybody get a drink because this is going to be a good conversation. And you know, and I've spoken to Ted about this, every time we start a show, we start with a culture soup moment because I say that social media is culture soup. So, Ted, one of the things that I see on social media all the time, especially recently, because technology and social media is enabling it, more people are concerned about their own personal brands. And that means that they're looking for ways to stand out as thought leaders and position themselves very well so that their current employers, maybe future employers, will see them as viable, creative, thoughtful, worthwhile employees. And one thing that I've heard is that it's a way to weather the storm if layoffs happen or the unexpected happens. But it's also a great way to raise your profile in your own company. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. I think it's also a lot about raising your profile in your own head. Because, you know, a lot of us are afraid to do things. And you have an opportunity here now to express your opinions, to share your writing, to have other people. Like, I like to say that, nobody has edited my content until I put it up. Mm-hmm. And then they help me edit it. And I'm not talking about grammatical editing or that kind of thing. I'm talking about like the way I use social. And by the way, for your audience, I tend to go off on tangents a little bit, so bear with me. Let me go.
We like that though. Go, Ted.
But what I use some different social media in different ways. For instance, Twitter is my total test ground. Now that doesn't mean I don't put finished content there. But if I have a new thought or something I'm thinking about or something I'm writing, I very often put those thoughts out on Twitter because I get immediate feedback. I mean, I like to say that I used to keep a pen and paper by my bed the way a lot of us did, like to write notes of things you think about in the middle of the night. I don't do that anymore. I don't even write notes on my phone. I tweet out those thoughts.
Oh wow!
Because then by the time I wake up, I've got feedback.
Yes, you do.
Did people think something of it? Should I correct it some way? And then I even use it, especially when I'm talking about controversial topics. And I don't necessarily mean politics when I talk controversial. Controversial can be a new outlook to marketing. Controversial can be about fitness or something I'm thinking. But what I'll do, like I'll give an example. I was on a plane, and I was recently. I've been a vegan for the last 2 years, and I've been thinking a lot more about health and fitness, even more so than I always did. And I was just watching all these people stuffing Coca-Colas and Doritos and all this crap into their mouth. Wow. And really, the thought was not a terrible negative thought. But when I would first write it, it kind of came out like, oh my God, look at all these people. All they do is complain about their weight and their fitness, and they're sitting here shoveling all this crap into their mouth. And something like that, if you put it on Facebook, it's very static. It's there. People, read it, and if they're critical of it, and people were very critical of what I wrote, is the point I'm making. Mm-hmm. And understandably, they called me out a little bit on the way I expressed it, that it sounded very judgmental, that it sounded like I was calling out people that have weight problems. And it gave me the chance to modify it. Mm-hmm. So then I came back, and by the way, I didn't delete the tweet. I came in and I tweeted it again, a little bit more refined. By the time it got to Facebook or another platform like LinkedIn, where it was more of a statement and it was more refined because of the editing process that my audience allowed me to have.
So that's a great concept. You're talking about, using your community as almost a focus group.
Yeah, exactly. And then of course, if you follow me, a lot of what I do, very often those things become blog posts. Mm-hmm. But what it does is it gives me the opportunity to, Twitter is very fluid. Yes, you write a tweet, it never goes away. And even if you delete it, if somebody shared it, it's still there. But people don't really go back very often and look at old tweets unless they're trying to search something or call you out on something. Something like this, it passes very quickly, and it allows you that opportunity to refine your thinking. And like Return on Relationship started as I was in the office at Elf Cosmetics with the founders who were getting very annoyed that I wouldn't allow them to try to sell stuff on social media. Remember, this was 2008.
Oh, okay.
I had one of the largest social presence for a cosmetics company. Why? Because everybody else was afraid to use it, all the big firms. But they were looking at me going, so when are we going to be able to put coupon codes? And I looked at them like, we need to see some ROI, even though it was mostly my time and a few interns. And I looked at them, and this thought had been going through my head, and I just kind of came out with it. And I said, guys, it's not just about return on investment. It's about return on relationship. And these two, old school money guys, just sat there and started staring at me. And it kind of stopped them in their tracks. And they're like, return on relationship. We want to hear more about that. And I'm going, I just came up with it. And luckily they said, we have another meeting in a couple of minutes. So can we get back together tomorrow or the next day and talk about this? So I immediately went out and I tweeted it. Mm-hmm. I said, it's not just about return on investment. It's about return on relationship. And I had 2,000 followers then, which was considered substantial.
2008, yes.
within 20 minutes, I had 20 retweets.
Wow.
And then little by little, people say, well, what does that mean? I'd have to think about it. And I started writing it. And then people I knew, like you or somebody else, I got a lot of people reaching out to me going, hey, I love that idea. Can we talk about that? And they helped me kind of hash this thing out to the point where I was using this for a few years before I even wrote the book, because people kept saying, oh, you got to write the book. And I'm like, oh, really? I got to write the book? I'm tweeting about it. Isn't that enough? And then, thank God, Kaplan Rose came around, who said, you're writing the book, and I'm going to co-author it with you, and I'm going to get your publisher, and I'm going to build the outline, and all you have to do is just tell me what you're thinking.
Wow.
God Catherine Rose, because I wouldn't have had my first book if it wasn't for her. But the point I'm making is, back to your point, is that social media gives everybody the opportunity to think about who they are, to write things they're thinking. Sometimes when you use the word personal brand, or, words are very important. We all know that, right? I mean, especially in today's political environment. And I mean, like I always try to say, don't say gun control, say gun responsibility. It just rings different in people's heads, and there are a lot of things like this. So a lot of times now what I see is, if you say personal brand, people get, I'm not trying to build a brand. No, trying to make yourself more sellable, more so more people know who you are, to build some awareness around your capabilities. I mean, just today I was talking to a friend, and she's always had jobs since she graduated from grad school. And it's the first time in her life where she's out of work. And she's never had to really look for a job. And she's like, well, what can I do beyond just sending out resumes? And that could be the topic for a whole nother show.
Sure, absolutely.
But I started giving her advice, and the point I'm making is that I say this to people all the time, and I look at audiences of young people or people at brand new events, and I go, you're all so cocky now because you got jobs. Yeah. And you probably had one job after another, but guess what? You're not going to have a job one day. You're going to get fired, or you're going to get laid off, or something's going to happen, because the average employee is only employed for 3 years now. Right. That means you have 15 jobs. And, right now I get this all the time. You ever get these emails, Michelle? They say, oh, Ted, how you doing? Listen, I know I haven't responded to your emails or your texts over the last year, but I've been very busy and I've had a very important job. Oh, yeah, you're very important. Right. By the way, I'm looking for something new now. And could you open up your whole network to me and spare half an hour to pick your brain? But you don't want to call it personal branding, call it relationship building, call it letting people know what your skills are. I tell students all the time, all that content you're paying $60,000 a year to write. Right. And why?
Well, you know what? Somebody asked me, when I put my website up, which actually launched in September, and I actually started to be even more methodical about my brand and my positioning, they assumed that I was trying to be some kind of social media influencer or a blogger or something like that. And I was like, no.
Something.
Right?
Well,
yeah, no. The whole deal is that I'm trying to communicate to my public and my specific audiences exactly who I am. Because for the past 5-6 years, people have known me as that woman from AT&T that talks about diversity. When there's 26 years of experience there, where there are some folks that know about that. A lot of people do. But I needed to package it in a way so that everybody would know the whole of L. Michelle Smith.
And more than that, so people can find it.
Yes.
Again, part of this conversation today was, how do I differentiate myself from every other? This is what she said to me. She goes, if I get in front of somebody, I will close, they will hire me. Mm-hmm. But how do I get my resume that looks like everybody else's, past that person?
Right.
Well, one important way to do that is, if you are lucky enough to get their attention, the first thing they're going to do, the first thing every recruiter does, is they're going to Google you.
Google.
They're going to go to LinkedIn. They're going to go to Facebook. They're going to see what is your footprint out there. And if you have content out there, if you have information out there about who you are as a person, what you believe in, or let's make it really simple, just samples of your writing.
Yes.
Just some of the stuff that you put together, some of the things you worked on in your last job, but not like, oh, I managed to move AT&T's needle. No, but actually work you did that comes out in blog posts and podcasts. Be open. Also, you get things like this. You get asked to be on people's podcasts.
Right.
So that I take all this stuff. Like, if you give me the embed code after you publish it, I will put it on my blog.
Awesome.
Because I don't want people to just have to find it on your thing. And then I told all these people, how could you not have your own blog?
Right.
How could you not? And this is why. Look, I'm a big believer. I publish on LinkedIn. I publish on Medium. I have all these things. But the only one I own is tedrubin.com. Mm-hmm. If tomorrow Zuckerberg gets home and says, you know what, honey? I've had enough of this. I'm just shutting down Facebook. We don't need any more money. We lose everything.
Totally.
So if you don't keep that stuff in another place where people can access it, then you're subject to, or what if he just says, you know what, I'm going to make people pay for this?
You know what, I'm so glad you said that, Ted, because in my first letter that I wrote to my followers about my website. That was core to my, I guess it's an argument, because enough people out there that don't think you should do that, or wow, you just, you're doing too much. No, I'm not. The problem was I was writing all of my writings on LinkedIn before they published onto Black Enterprise. Let's say, okay, Black Enterprise could go out of business. Who knows, right? We don't want them to. LinkedIn could get bought, sold, whatever, chopped up into bits and become, Linkstagram and, SnapLink or something. You never know. And your content goes up in smoke. Do you agree that social media should really be the trailer to the movie? Meaning that the movie should be tedrubin.com or elmichellesmith.com or what?
I understand your point. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe not the trailer because there's more there, but it should be the lead-in, the place that leads you to something else, a place that someone says, oh, my God, he has tedrubin.com. Because, I publish all my blog posts, get put on Facebook for a reason.
Right.
Because I want people to know that exists, but also because of the SEO juice and everything else. When people, right now it's gotten to the point where if someone Googles Ted Rubin, I'm the first 20 pages.
Yes.
I mean, they can barely get by it.
Yeah.
So, and that's not an ego thing. That's
security.
Sometimes people say, right, sometimes people say to me, like, oh, my God, I got to run. How can I find you? Just go to Google.
Yeah.
I mean, and then I also tell people, make yourself available. Like my phone number, my email address, it's all on all my stuff. You go to Facebook, you go to LinkedIn, any of these, you can find how to contact me.
Right.
Well, I mean, why hide it? And then this whole thing. So here's another great one. I was at a brand innovators just the other day, and you might know this, Bo, might not. But before every brand innovators, what I do is I go to LinkedIn and I pull up the photo of every person that's going to be speaking, so I can easily find the audience. Because truth be told, brand innovators does a really poor job of prepping people to find me and to find them, and so I go to LinkedIn, and I got to tell you that every time at every conference, there's at least 2 or 3 people who I can't get their picture because I'm not connected to them, so their photo's not available.
Right.
And then this happened just at the last one, and it's funny. I didn't say who he was, but I called him out. He was in the audience. But I go up to this guy and I said, "Oh, that's you." I said, "Dude, why is your photo not available on LinkedIn?" He goes, "Yeah, it's available if you're connected to me." And I'm like, "Yeah, but if I'm connected to you, I don't fucking care about your picture." But what if I'm an employer looking to hire you? What if I'm looking to partner with you? What about if I'm just looking to locate you because I think that you're a smart guy? Why would you not want me to? Well, I try to keep a low profile. I go, dude, that is the dumbest thing I ever heard. I said, stop trying to keep a low profile because you're not that important. You're just not that important. You got a goddamn director's job at a mid-level brand.
Yeah.
I said, and guess what? You're going to get fired. I guarantee it. You're going to need it, or you're going to want to leave because you're going to be pissed off at your boss, or you're just going to want to improve your life, or you're just going to be bored.
Yeah.
Why would you want people not to be able to find you? Why would you not want a recruiter to be able to know as much as he can about you if he's looking to fill a role that might be your next step up?
Right.
Not connected to that recruiter. First of all, you're not protecting your privacy because anybody that's a bad guy that wants to know what you look like, by the way, I got your picture.
Yeah.
All I have to do is go, I got your goddamn picture. So,
you're all over Facebook.
Right. Just a tip to parents out there, if your kids ever block you from their social channels, everything they post is indexed by Google.
Totally.
It's all there. You can find it by Googling their name, or if the worst case is find out what their Instagram handle is. And by the way, that's easy. And then all you need is their Instagram handle, and you can get access to anything they've ever posted, even if they have.
Absolutely. So let's talk a minute about this whole keeping a low profile, because what I find is those personality types are typically the ones that will go all out on their social handles for their brand, for their companies, but they're doing very little for themselves. And I wrote something about this. It was an article that I wrote for Black Enterprise, and you were quoted in it. And we talked about how sometimes if the companies aren't doing it right, especially if the individual isn't doing it right, your personal brand and your employee advocacy can come into conflict with one another. Do you have an opinion about that?
No, well, first of all, I think the dumbest thing brands do is try to motivate employees to share about their company, but they're not willing to support their employees.
Mm-hmm.
So, and by the way, this is rampant. There are very, very few companies that are using employee advocacy platforms like Dynamic Signal correctly.
Right.
Absolutely, look, they're getting upside, and unfortunately, like every other type of marketing, all they look at is I'm paying this, and I think I'm getting this value, and there's a differentiator between the two, so I'm making margin.
Yes.
Okay, ready to go. Instead of looking at how it could be so much better. It's like any kind of an organization. Oh, our store's doing great. Well, maybe it could do better if your people, your counter smiled at people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's little things like that. So what I see happening is most companies, all they do is they get an employee advocacy platform and they go, you share our stuff, and here's the app, and we're going to put out all these things. So and they are resolving one issue of the reason a lot of people don't share content about their company is they're worried that it's not approved, that maybe they shouldn't be sharing. Not okay. So that problem is absolutely solved regardless of what you do for them.
Right.
We put it on the platform, you're free to share it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but if there's a couple of things that happen here. First of all, a lot of times people start sharing that stuff, and that's all they're sharing on their profiles.
Yes.
And their followers are like, I'm done. Like, Michelle,
Totally.
I don't really give a shit about AT&T. I read about it periodically if you post something in. But I want to know what you're doing with that unbelievably gorgeous daughter of yours and horrible things you do. And I love your family, and I love when you're speaking places, and I want to hear about your life. And, oh, wow, AT&T's doing a new campaign. That's pretty cool. Like, I don't mind seeing that. So what happens is these people just start sharing company information, and their followers stop paying attention.
Exactly.
And then the other side of it is, all they're doing is like sharing stuff from their company. What about if you gave them information about weekend activities for their kids? Talk about how to save money with their finances. How to better themselves by going to certain courses. How about giving them content that they can share with their followers that actually is interesting to them
and
useful, so that they their followers keep coming back. Because, by the way, if their followers stop going to their page, who cares how much they're posting about your company?
Yeah, and I've had this conversation with mentees, especially where I've cornered them. I'm like, all I see is your company news on your Twitter handle. So, are there only employees from your company following you? No. My sorority members, my classmates, my this and my that, my this and my that. I said, don't you think they want to hear more about you? That's why they follow you. And it's like a light bulb goes off.
Or how about things that are interesting to them?
Yes.
What they can do with their kids,
Absolutely.
How they can save money, how they a merchant that's doing a bad thing that you want to alert people to because whatever. I mean, that's what builds connection. I mean, they're going to stop coming to those pages, and then I want to address something else. I want to address this thing that has come about where all these gurus are, LinkedIn is only for business. Don't anything personal there. Please, I won't even say what I'm thinking because, who knows who's listening to this show. But first of all, post whatever works for you. Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you right now that I post a lot on LinkedIn, and what tends to get when I really blow something out of the park is when I write about visiting my daughter and the time I had, or some other thing that's happening in my life that's a true life event, not like, I'm having cocktails. Right. No, I post those kind of things there. But what I post are things that are important in my life, and I'll tell you why. It's not just because it's something else that people want to hear about. It's because I have followers on LinkedIn that don't follow me anywhere else. Mm-hmm. They don't follow me on Facebook. They might not follow me on Twitter. So they're not going to know that my mom passed away or that my daughter got accepted at Harvard or that hasn't happened yet, but we're waiting.
Oh, that's awesome.
For the spring, okay?
Yeah.
She's applying to law school there, and we're
going to cross
hopeful.
our fingers.
But, yes. But the point I'm making is that these are things that they are interested in as long as you don't make a habit. But guess what? Even if you do make a habit of it, if the people that follow you like it,
so
God bless.
Right. Exactly.
It's your platform. And guess what? You know what the beauty of social media is? It is the ultimate in permission marketing. If you don't like what I'm posting, stop following.
Exactly. And you know what, Ted? You have another concept that I've quoted in other articles where you talk about the difference between a network and a community. And I think that's really important on your social platforms too, because if you haven't developed a relationship with the people that follow you, it's just a network. But a community will respond differently, and there are reasons why, right?
Right. What I like to say is a network gives you reach, but a community gives you power.
Mm-hmm.
Networks connect, but communities care.
Yes.
And when I always thought I was a networker. My whole life, this was the word that was in my head. Everywhere I went, every company, I'm 60 years old. I've been in a lot of companies. Mm-hmm. I've reinvented myself half a dozen times. And everywhere I go, I leave with at least one new really strong relationship. And then I realized that all these people know each other.
Yes, they do.
Because I bring them all together. Mm-hmm. And then I realized what I really recognized a few years ago is that what I really am is a community builder. Mm-hmm. All my friends know each other. I mean, I'm taking my best friend, my college roommate, who is my best friend since then, to Cuba for his 62nd birthday. It's a bucket list trip of him. He's had some health issues. And I decided I didn't want to just bring him. I thought it would be fun if there was a bunch of us. Mm-hmm. And the 5 guys I'm bringing, including him and myself, the other 3, are from all different parts of my life that have all become best friends.
Oh,
wow. One of them is a kid who's 40, who was a kid when I was 30, who lived next door to us when I had an apartment down in Florida and a business down there years ago. Another one is a guy named Joe Soto, who is a retired New York City cop, who is the godfather of both my daughters, who I met when I had an investment firm in New York.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God. Let's see. 35 years ago. And I hired him to drive for me at night. And he became one of my best friends. And the other one is John Andrews, who, of course, you know, my business partner, who into Collective Bias, and I've been partners with for the last 10 years. All these guys know each other. And they all know the guy that I've known since I was 18 when I first went to college. And it's a community. And then when I write about it, there's all these other people that have been a part of that all these years. And like you said, it's amazing the power it gives you, because when there's a relationship is one thing, and they're great. And I reach out to Michelle and I say, Michelle, I'm having a little problem. I need you to support me. This post is really important to me. Can you help me? And I know the first words out of your mouth will be like, well, let's call all the people from Brandon Innovative, like all these people we've met over the years, because they're going to want to support you if this is. And then it leads to something that I've always done is I don't ask for a lot. People all the time say, hey, Ted, you've done something for me. What can I do for you? I go, you're doing it right here just by connecting with me and engaging. But what that also does is when you do finally ask for something, like I can't even remember the last time I asked somebody to share something. Right. I put it out. And sometimes when people say, what can I do to support you? I go, well, whatever works for you. Like, you know what I do. Mm-hmm. So, and back, my mom passed away 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time in many years I had a hashtag RIP Bernice, rest in peace, Bernice. And I just, for me, for nobody else, I wanted it to trend on the day of her funeral. Yeah. And it did, because I reached out to the community and I said, guys, I never asked you for anything, but I'd really appreciate if you could share this hashtag.
That's awesome.
And in honor of my mom. So, you know, these are things that you can do, because you've been out there, you've been building relationships, you've been sharing content. And by the way, some people say to me, well, you know what? I'm not a thought leader, and I don't really come up with a lot of original content. That's not my thing. And some of it that I do is owned by the company I work for. I'm like, well, how about becoming known for sharing great content?
Yes.
You know, you don't have to necessarily create that content. You can be that person that, oh my God, Michelle shares the most amazing content about scuba diving. Like, and it's just like, I go to people for that. I know the people who like, when I want to buy a car, I go to my friends that post all this stuff about cars. Mm-hmm. I want a new laptop. I call my tech buddies. I mean, you can become known not necessarily for your own original thought, but how about for your own work that you do by reviewing and reading content and sharing good stuff?
Right. You know what? I have always been networking averse, just based on the classic idea of what networking is, which seems to be very, very superficial. Go to an 8-minute networking, talk to a bunch of strangers, all of this good stuff. I think that I know that I'm very high I, introverted. although I'm an extrovert, right? So I sat in a mentor circle for an officer once, and they asked me to talk about networking, and I actually took a reverse stance, which actually talked more about the community that they hadn't really even understood that they'd already built.
Right.
So we talked about start with who you know. Sometimes people don't even think about the people they already know as being a part of their community or a part of their
Absolutely.
network. The other thing that I mentioned to them was if you're on LinkedIn, and you should be, make
Absolutely.
sure, even if you haven't written a ton of content, if you are afraid to post, the algorithm is so friendly that if you share content from other places that's useful to your community, just like you
Yes.
said, you'll get a reputation for good shares. And if you want to go all out, you can go and like somebody else's content and it will show up in your news feed, right? And if you really want to
100%.
get out there, tag somebody on something they shared on your feed and say, what a great share. It shows up on your feed and it shows up on theirs. And their light bulbs just went off. I was like, you don't have to write blogs. You don't even have to post if you don't want to. This is how you can do it and still be positioned in a great way.
100%. I'm going to throw out a few more tips for that.
Mm-hmm.
So when you comment on other people's content,
Yeah.
you get noticed because you're writing on it. So
Yes.
make a habit of being the first one to comment on. No one posts a post, whether they're industry or they're people's personal blogs. You know, there's a reason. Most people don't know the real reason that Seth Godin doesn't allow comments on his blog.
Oh.
And he was the first one to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And part of what he usually explains it as when he talks, and this is true also. He says it's my house, and I don't really care about your opinion.
He's Seth Godin.
But the real reason he doesn't allow comments on his post is he doesn't want to give you access to his millions of followers. Because the minute you post on his blog, you get seen by everybody that reads his blog.
Wow.
So he doesn't want you building your brand on his content.
Wow.
So,
That's deep.
but there's a lot of people that don't do that, which me, especially Forbes.com and Media Post and Business Insider, they all allow commenting. So get in there and comment on other people, even if it's a little tiny comment, even if it's the same thing all the time. You know, it could be something like, wow, I really loved your post, very insightful.
Yeah.
I mean, every time. I mean, but here's the other thing, and this comes from that. People say to me, I don't know what to write about, or I'm not really a writer. Now, I want to tell you something. I am not a writer at all. When Twitter first came out, it was like manna from heaven. I could write 140 characters, and I got credit for like getting a thought across in only 100. And then when a mentor of mine, Dean Landsman, told me I had to have a blog. I'm like, oh man, you mean I got to write more? You know, because it was hard for me. And I over time, he said, listen, it's like running or any kind of working out. It's like drinking. The more you do it, the better you get at it, up to the point. But the more you write, the easier it gets. But you also, if you start watching for it, you learn tricks. Now, one of my tricks is that I write for people. I get paid to write for a number of different companies. But what I will never take is a gig where they give me an assignment. I do not take assignments. I only take where I can write about anything I want, because I can't just write about a topic. It's just not the kind of writer I am. I write about things I'm passionate about. I write about things that are on my mind. But the way most of my blog posts happen, and the way your audience can do this, if it's something that doesn't come natural to them, is I read a lot of blogs, and I get fired up. Either I agree with them or I don't agree with them.
Right.
And I write a comment. Hey, Michelle, love what you wrote. Employee advocacy is so important. And and all of a sudden it starts flowing, right?
Yeah.
Because you're passionate.
Yeah.
So I don't care who you are. You could be the worst writer when you have something to say about what somebody else wrote. You start going. So what I do is I save all those comments and I turn them into blog posts.
I love it. That is smart.
And what I do is I'm not ready to write the blog post right now. So I realized, oh my God, I just went off. I cut and pasted. I put into in an email. On the subject of the email, I write blog post - employee advocacy, AT&T, and it can wait, or whatever it happens to be. And then they pile up in my drafts, so that when I'm ready to write a post, I go in and I have any number of them.
Yeah.
And I pull one out, and sometimes I just post exactly. Sometimes That's all I write.
I've noticed that. Yeah, and you put a nice graphic with it, and boom, you're done.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes I extend on it because it got me. I'm re-fired up, and I'll add a little bit more. But it's a great way to produce content. And by the way, stop worrying about writing 300 words, 400 words, 1,000 words. Truth be told, look at Seth's blog.
Right.
It's the most widely read marketing blog in the world because it's short. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've got like 20 windows opened up on my laptop with articles I go back to. Mm-hmm. But I never have to go back to Seth's articles because they're short. I finish them and I leave. And if you write like that, you'd be surprised how many more people will read what you write.
I have noticed even on LinkedIn that if something happens in the news, and I remember this one particular post had to do with post Coachella and Beyonce, and then not too long after that, the Carters dropped their album, surprise drop, right? And then they went on tour. And I did a LinkedIn post that was just about what marketers could learn from the Carters. And it was, literally 3 or 4 sentences.
Right.
And later on, I did a whole article for Black Enterprise. And it's kind of the same way. I kind of got inspired, and then I went and wrote something. But that was the highest engaged LinkedIn post that I have ever done, besides when Pepsi went off the rails with their and I just did a few lines, and it usually is around some topic that people expect me to talk about, right? So I post that and let it fly.
And then another thing I do is I'll take blog posts that are longer, and I'll just take a paragraph of it and post it to Facebook without the blog post.
Yes.
Just the content. And then here's another thing. Be good to people. Mm-hmm. So, this is something that's become part of my brand, but it also is part of what we're talking about here, because if you give people things that are valuable to them, that help them, if you reach out and do for others without expectation or anything back in return,
right.
Like when people say, what can I do for you? And you go, I'm good. Mm-hmm. Like, first of all, they're a little taken aback. I think the minute you say that, you're going to go, well, I would love to talk to AT&T about...
Yeah.
No, hold back on that urge and save it. And just do something for the fact of doing it, and smile more and offer people help and put out stuff that you think might be useful to them.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised. I mean, and then here's another thing. Stop worrying about how many likes and how many shares and all these other things you get, because number one is many more people are seeing your content than are liking it or sharing it.
Isn't that
many
true?
People participate vicariously, and I got to tell you, I'll give it to you firsthand. Now, there's no reason to be embarrassed to comment on my stuff. A lot of people do, but I travel all over the country, all over the world, and I can't tell you that there's not one trip I take and not one event I go to where at least one person walks up to me and goes, oh my God, that post you wrote, I never heard of them. I don't know who they are. They don't like me. They don't follow me. We're not connected, but they're reading my content.
Yes.
So many more people are reading what you post than are your friends. And the people that are letting you know they were there, because a lot of people like to stay quiet, so you don't know that they viewed your content until they say it.
Right. This is a very important distinction, because I think some people believe that the whole idea of building your personal brand veers into this social influencer type when they have totally different concerns. Someone came to me and said, oh, okay, well, if you don't get more than 15 likes on a piece of content, you need to delete that content. And I was like, why are they saying that?
What are you, 20 years old?
Well, and here's the other thing, too. I don't...
College?
Yeah, well, but I probably will never push products on my Instagram. That's not why I have it. You almost have to understand your why, right? If you understand your why, you don't fall for just about everything. That probably would make sense for someone who is trying to, sell their engagement to try and push something for brands, but not for somebody who's just... positioning themselves based on what they do.
100%. And then another thing, and I've been trying to get this across to marketers at event after event. What they're calling influencers, they're not influencers. They're media properties. They're buying media.
Yeah.
Okay? I can count on these two hands the amount of true influencers in this country. Influencers. Mm-hmm. People that can say, go buy something, they buy it. The people that brands are hiring as influencers are not influencing anybody.
Oh,
what they do have is reach.
Yes.
And they have people that read what they post. And their content is usually a lot more valuable than buying an ad.
Yes.
But what you're buying is media. You're
Yes.
not buying influence. You're buying their audience who says, hey, Michelle really publishes good stuff and she likes Tide. Well, I'm going to read her post about it because the author, she's going to tell me why she likes it, not just go buy it.
Right.
And those people that they're hiring, I'm telling you, I hear all these talk about influencers, and the word is just being misused.
We have talked about this. Go ahead.
They're media properties. And by the way, like I said, very good, valuable media properties, many of them.
Absolutely.
But you're buying media.
Yes. So I had this conversation at least twice over about the word influencer with a couple of my guests. And we have both, in both situations, come to the conclusion that the word influence is almost being misused in that context, because really the definition is, can you influence someone to do something, right? And that can be one-to-one, it can be in real life, it could be, so there are plenty of people who have incredible influence who may not even show up on your Twitter feed. And
you know who the real influencers are? Your neighbors, your friends, your colleagues. Everybody influences somebody. And truth be told, I would never buy something because a influencer, but I do get influenced. I'm totally, completely available to be influenced, but I'm influenced by you. I'm influenced by John Andrews. I'm influenced by my buddy Bruce Dearden. I'm influenced by my buddy Danny, who's a dive master, and I want to buy dive equipment. I go to Danny. I don't go to someone online who's called a dive influencer.
Right.
I know around me who I trust.
Which is like a full circle, that's like looping back to what we were just saying about the power in the real estate that you have in your social capital. Understanding, and I put this in each of the tweets that I tweeted out this article, everybody's an influencer. Now you need to start acting like it.
Everybody influences somebody. And also, the other side of that coin, recognize that you influence people and tread lightly.
Yes.
Because, you might be saying that, you had a bad experience at a restaurant because the waiter had a bad day, and now you're telling your friends not to go there.
Right.
When the restaurant might be fine, and what you really should be saying is, I had this horrible waiter, at this restaurant. Now, if you took it a step further and you went to the manager said, hey, we don't give a shit, he's our best waiter, go away. Okay, now that takes it a step further. But you have to remember that you do influence people, so remember to use that judiciously.
Handle with care. Absolutely. So you gave a couple of tips, maybe more than a couple, to companies that are thinking, okay, I want to engage employee advocacy. You know what? I respect my employees and their right to build their own personal brands. How can I arm them with great content to do both successfully?
I got to tell you, I think it's incredibly easy. First of all, empower the people within your organization to find content that's valuable to other employees. So, look, it's easy to find the content that you think is important, okay? In other words, the content that you want people sharing, right? You know what you publish, what you've written. That's the easy part. So how do you find content that helps them build their audience? Well, you talk to them about, get to know your employees. What's important to them? How many employees? Look at your roster. Human Resources has this. How many of your employees have kids? What's the average age of the kids? What's the age range of the kids? 2 to 20. Okay. So you have employees who have kids going to college. So content about how to help your child find the right university, how to prepare for college, how to pack for college. If I hear one more mom telling me she's so stressed because she's spending the whole summer packing her son for college, I'm like, seriously? Your son should be packing himself.
That's a grown man.
No, but then of course I get to feel like, oh, just because you think my child has challenges, I'm like, no. I'm not saying don't help them, don't advise them, but don't let your kids go out and party while you're at home stressing over packing.
Yes.
Come on. But what I'm saying, so back, of course, let's go back. So find content. Find out, do your employees like travel? What's important to them? Talk to them about who follows them. What are their friends like? Find, and then ask them, hey, could you start sharing content with us that you think would be valuable to other employees? Look, sourcing content is hard. Just like, look, I talk about it, Photify. I'm a CMO of Photify, as you mentioned, and I work with John Andrews. And one of our things is companies are having this big challenge. Every event we go to, oh my God, content, we can't keep up with it. So why aren't your employees creating content for you? Why aren't your employees sourcing content for you? By the way, they could do it easily. Why doesn't every retailer and every hospitality company, every restaurant company have their employees who are on the front line taking photos and sharing it?
Control.
Oh my God. But guess what? That control is costing them.
Yes.
So back to this. If you want to source good content for your employees, ask your employees. Guess what? I guarantee you they'll say, oh, I'd love to give you content that I'm reading that I'd like, that I think you should share with other people. That would be great. And then, of course, look, there's people, there's certain levels and certain parts of management where there's people that you trust and people that you don't. But then again, let them prove themselves to you. Like one of the things I do, I share people's content. And in the beginning, if I meet Michelle and Michelle says, hey, Ted, I'd love you to read my latest blog post. And if you like it, maybe you'll share it, and I'm not saying you would say that, but
sure.
You might. I'm going to really read your first few that I look at very detailed. But at some point, I'm going to get a confidence level in Michelle. And I'm going to say, if Michelle tells me to share something, I know it's good content, especially when it's somebody else's content. Like, oh, Ted, you should share this post, so-and-so wrote it. So as time goes on, I know I have to scrutinize it a little bit less and a little bit less. And the same thing happens in a company, and they can do things like rating people like, oh, Michelle's an A-plus sharer. We know that anything she tells us to share, we can just put out there. We don't have to worry about it. Oh, so-and-so, you know what? We need to review it a little bit and make sure it's there. Make sure it doesn't say anything that's controversial or that we have to worry about. But, and then, of course, there's different topics. If it's about travel, it's easy. I mean, you don't really have to worry about what you're sharing.
You know what else I've seen, though? I've seen where there are middle managers or even less than that are excellent sharers that have great followings, but at some point they're told to tamp down with them because we want our officers to get all of the shine, which is fine, but the officers don't have the followings or the relationships, and then they're stuck wondering, what do I do?
Another incredibly short-sighted tactic that a lot of companies take. In other words, oh, Michelle's getting too much, publicity, or people are talking about her too much. The more your employees are going to leave eventually. It's the way it is, okay? What should happen is they should be better when they leave than when they come in. And when you get a reputation for that as a brand, American Express has a reputation for that as a brand. Procter & Gamble has a reputation as that for a brand. There might be other things about them people might not like, but people want to work there because they know that they're going to be better off when they leave. And they're going to be better off not just because they have it on their resume, but because people are going to say, I know that American Express allows them to expand their horizons, allows them to learn how to share content, allows them to become experts in certain areas. So it's a very foolish, short-sighted thing for brands to do, but you're right. So many of them do it. Oh, my God, so-and-so's getting too big for her boots. We need to tamp her down. She shouldn't be speaking at so many events. Oh, my God, she's building her own brand. But the bigger her brand gets, guess what? What's next to her name every time she speaks? The name of her company. So, look, it's something we're going to have to work on for a while. And I know this is not a political broadcast, but unfortunately, with the administration we have in place,
we actually went there on the last interview.
Well, unfortunately, with the administration we have in place, it kind of goes to that side as well. Control people, don't allow people to have a voice. Keep the status quo. Oh my God, these people are getting too much voice. They're criminals. I mean, talk about words. Immigrants are criminals. I mean, demonstrations have become riots. They're not riots. They're demonstrations, but when you use the word riot. So I think brands have to start recognizing, but here's something I say at almost every brand innovators event. Change doesn't come from the top. The C-suite never affects change. All they want, I don't even care if they're brought in as a change agent. They keep the status quo. They want to cash in their options. They want their stock price to go up. That's all they care about. Change comes from the middle.
Yes.
It comes from directors,
Mm-hmm.
from VPs, from managers, and there's another reason for that. The higher up you get on the scale, the harder it is to find a job. There's only so many CMO jobs in this country. So once you're a CMO, you're like, whoa, okay, I need to keep my job. If I lose it, it's going to be hard to find one. But when you're a director, you're a manager, and you're a VP, there's a million jobs out there.
Yes.
Also, the older you get, unfortunately, until you hit a certain point, that mid-level, your kids are getting grown up, they have to go to college. So younger people change, and then people like at my level. I don't like my kids. I don't care anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God I'm successful. You don't want to. I mean, people say to me all the time, "Oh my God, you shouldn't say that. You might not get hired in your next gig." Great, don't hire me. What I think, I don't want to get hired. And younger people have that opportunity too. So that's the group of people that have to stand up and say, I'm not going to stop speaking. I mean, I'm not going to stop building my personal brand. I'm not going to get off social media. Look, you're also the other side. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to mention who this was, mm-hmm. but it's somebody we both know.
Okay.
But if you are in a position where you have a job where you have to keep up a certain level of, or below a certain level of commentary, then don't feature them as your employer on your Twitter handle. Yeah. Nobody says you have to. So, if you're going to tweet something out that's a little bit controversial or it's a particular person or say something, don't leave it right in your Twitter handle who you work for so they can then tag that person when they're...
Exactly. Right.
Truth is, most of them aren't going to go to your LinkedIn profile. They're not going to go look you up. It's what's right there. So you have to also think about, what if I'm going to be a little bit more outgoing, maybe it's going to be on Twitter. So on Twitter, I'm just going to say, hey, I'm Ted Rubin, and this is who I am. I don't work for so-and-so. Now, again, yes, people can find out, but most people will not. Mm-hmm. They're not going to go look that far. But we have to push back. I like to say we also have to be more creative. When was the last time you were in a brainstorming session where brains were actually storming? I would venture that even at AT&T...
I'm sorry, that makes me laugh because it happens all the time.
You get called into a brainstorming session. The person that organizes gives you the things you need to talk about, tells you exactly what they want to hear from you, and then only two people talk because everyone else is either afraid of saying something stupid, afraid of being reprimanded by their boss, afraid of not following the party line, and nothing new comes out of it.
Right.
Well, the way that's going to change is when people like you, like other people, like are going to raise their hand and say, hey, I've got an idea, and I don't care if you don't like it. I'm going to talk about it. And by the way, if you don't like that, I really love working here, and I think I can lend a lot, but if this isn't going to work for you, I'll find another place that wants to hear my idea. And let me also step that back for a second, because I've been in this position, and I know a lot of people are. There are times where you're in a position where you can't lose your job, or you can't risk doing something, and we all experience that. And then I'm not telling you to speak up when that's the situation. We all have time, or, the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world that, oh my God, only do a job you love and this bullshit, and fuck you, okay? Some of us have bills to pay. Some of us have kids going to college. Yes. Some of us are divorced and can't go home to our exes and say, sorry, honey, but I'm not sending a support check this month because I told my boss to go screw himself because I didn't like what he was doing. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you always have to stand up, and there are times and points of your life where you got to do what you got to do because you got to be there for certain people that are more important than the people you're working for. Okay? But when you have that opportunity, when you're in that position, or even in little ways, it can always be baby steps. It doesn't have to be a big way. Say, hey, I've got a really good idea, and I'd love to talk about it without without having to worry that I'm going to get in trouble for it.
Right.
And that's really the most innovative companies are the ones that give their employees a voice.
Yeah.
Because you have so much talent there. I mean, especially the frontline employees. How about, what most companies overlook? How about talking to your customer service people? How about having times where they get to say what they're hearing? They're hearing it frontline. Or your employees that work in the stores. Why don't more retailers have things where they pull in all their associates who are on the floor and have them talk about what they're hearing from their customers? You can edit that out if you want to.
I know. I turned my mic off. Well, this has been good, Ted. Any projects you're working on right now that we could find out about, follow you, buy a book? What's going on?
Well, a couple of things going on. So I've been working, my business partner, John Andrews, joined a company called Photofy as their CEO. He'd been on their advisory board for a few years, and he had involved me along the way. And, we've got a great tool that the way I describe it is it's an easy to use Canva. Like a lot of people, like when I never used to use Canva. I had my assistant do stuff for me because it was just too complicated. So this is a photo tool that allows you to put branded assets, so companies don't have to be worried that their logo won't be done correctly, and it allows you to empower employees and customers to create content for you at scale. So that's one thing I'm doing.
Wow.
I love stuff with John Andrews, and the two of us are also writing a book. It's my fourth book. It's his first. John will have kind of the lead on this one because it's something he's really passionate about. It's called Retail Relevancy. And John is what we call a retail geek. John goes to stores just because he likes to experience what's happening there and to learn. And he's always dragging me, he's dragging me into these stores. I'm like, dude, what are we doing here? He goes, man, I just want to see what they're doing. It's really cool. North Face has tents in it where you can experience how cold it is on the top of Mount Everest. It's really kind of cool. So let's check it out. So we're writing a book about where retail's going, how it's changing, and how it's evolving. It's called Retail Relevancy. Where I right now I'd say it's doubtful, but we are hoping to have it out in January.
Okay.
Might happen. But John, you got to get writing a little bit more if you want to get that book out by January. That's
Come
all.
on, John. Come on.
Come on. So hopefully people will check that out. We have a site called retailrelevancy.com, and we use the hashtag retail relevancy, and we're sharing a lot of the content that we're producing. So hopefully they'll go check that out.
And tell us about hashtag R on R.
Okay. Well, that's kind of simple. I've been doing that for a long time. ROR or hashtag R&R is return on relationship. And simply put, it's the value that is accrued by a person or a brand due to nurturing relationship. What we're doing right here, I like to say that ROI, return on investment, is simple dollars and cents. But ROR is a value that will accrue over time through connection, loyalty, recommendations, and sharing. And I try to use it to define and educate companies, brands, and people about the importance of creating authentic connection, interaction, engagement. And that's as simple as just communicating with people, just getting on calls like what we're doing right now, talking to people when you're seeing them, not looking at everybody else that's walking in the room, but looking at them in the eye when you're talking to them. And I wrote a follow-up book. My first book was called Return on Relationship, and that's the hub of everything I do. I on top at Rubin.com, I have a site called returnonrelationship.com, which is a lot of my content about that. But I wrote a follow-up book called How to Look People in the Eye Digitally. And it was chapter in Return on Relationship. And it's like doing what you and I have done so many times when we see each other and we talk to each other. We actually sit down. I mean, and I can almost envision you sit down and you almost almost hold my hand. Like you put your hand on mine and you go, so what's going on? And nobody else matters.
Right.
And I'm trying to teach people how to do that digitally, because what happens, we click a button, we think liking something is making a friend. Liking something is an invitation. Shaking somebody's hand is an invitation to start a friendship. And looking people in the eye digitally means reading about them, going to their profile or before you get in the call with them, and doing what you and I do. I mean, I look at, you post a lot of content. I look at it, I read it. You post content about branding, about diversity, and then you post a lot of content about you and your daughter and the things that you do. And I love that. And I know that you look at a lot of what I post, and I post about my life.
Your daughters.
I post about my sadness. I don't just post about, I post about my happiness. I post about politics, things that are good, things that are negative. I put it all out there. And return on relationship comes from getting to know people.
Yeah.
And I like to say that relationships are like muscle tissue. The more you engage them, the stronger and more valuable they become.
Awesome. Ted, you are such an incredible friend, and I appreciate all your sage wisdom, and I'm glad that I was able to share it with my listeners. Guys, tedrubin.com, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right. The Culture Soup Podcast is a production of No Silos Communication.